All right, guys, thanks for coming back to the channel. Again, my name is Milton. I am a second-degree black belt in Shotokan Karate out here in Louisiana. And today I'm going to do a video on the top 5 effective martial arts for self-defense according to ChatGPT. Before we start, please hit the like button. I'd really appreciate it. And also subscribe. It really helps me grow this channel and bring you guys content. I'd really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and just premise the video. I'm going to look at the top 5 martial arts according to ChatGPT that is best for self-defense, and I'm going to just give my input on whether or not I agree or disagree. Again, I am not a master of all these martial arts. I'm just going to speak fluently on what I've seen and what I know. All right, so I'm going to look at what ChatGPT says, see if I agree or disagree. And forewarning, I am only a karateka. I know a little bit of jiu-jitsu from my days in the military, so I can't speak fluently on everything. I'm just going to give my assessment based off what I know with my limited knowledge, okay? And if anyone's got something to add, anything you agree or disagree, or something that you felt that I left out, please leave it in the comment section below. I'd love to hear it. So without that, so the number one martial art that ChatGPT suggests for self-defense is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So from what I've seen with Jiu-Jitsu, it's a great martial art. It is practical because ChatGPT says most fights end up on the ground. And truthfully speaking, I've seen that in real life too. Fights do tend to go to the ground. So let's talk about Jiu-Jitsu's strengths. Its biggest strength is you can take out larger opponents. Jiu-Jitsu is known for that, all right? I've seen people who know Jiu-Jitsu taking on people who are way taller, way bigger than them. It's very effective if the person you're fighting is taller than you. So it's definitely got that going for it. Something I notice is that people who practice Jiu-Jitsu tend to learn it a lot faster than other martial arts. With karate, for example, it takes you a long time to become a good karateka. With boxing, it takes you a long time to become a good boxer. I've seen people get pretty good at jiu-jitsu and able to defend themselves, like just having mock fights with friends, that they can just take someone down relatively quickly. I think it's the way they train. They do a lot of pressure testing, and I'll admit in karate we don't do it as much, and I think I've highlighted that in other videos. And there are other sports like that too, whereas from what I've seen in jiu-jitsu, you kind of jump in there a little quickly. I don't think jiu-jitsu people get hurt in the same way as standing fighting styles go, so maybe that's why they're able to practice pressure testing so much. But they are very good at taking larger opponents, and they are also really good at excelling in that martial art in a relatively short amount of time in comparison to other martial arts. Now, its weakness. One is you got to get the person to the ground. Now, 9 out of 10, the fight does go to the ground, but that doesn't always mean it will go to the ground. You do have to get the person on the ground. But jiu-jitsu people are taught a lot of takedowns, so that is something that they practice for. But the number one weakness of jiu-jitsu that I've seen is it's defenseless against multiple people. So if there's more than one person, like someone's friend, and you have some other person on the ground, the other person's probably going to start kicking and stomping on you. So it's not as effective when you're fighting multiple people, is the biggest flaw of jiu-jitsu. But other than that, it's a very solid martial art. Now, again, there are mech dojos everywhere. The jiu-jitsu school I've heard of that's been praised the most is the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu gyms or dojos. I don't know what they call them or what a place where you practice jiu-jitsu is called, but I hear that they're the best ones out there, or at least that's the one I normally hear that's the most reliable, because there's always going to be schools, whether it's boxing, karate, or jiu-jitsu, that are just out there to make money. They don't care. They'll hand you a black belt, they'll pass you, and that's just unfortunately the way the world is. But again, jiu-jitsu, very solid choice. You can't go wrong with it. Now, number 2 would be Muay Thai. I, for one, do agree with that one, because it uses fists, it uses elbows, knees, feet. Every part of the body gets worked, and that's simulating a real fight. In a real fight, you're not limited to just hands. You can elbow, you can hit people with your knees, you can hit them in so many different parts of the body with different parts of your body that a lot of other styles don't do. And it's like very devastating power. It's designed to end the fight quickly, which I agree with. As a karateka, that is something you're taught. You want to end the fight quickly and efficiently as possible. A fight in the real life should not be dragging on, because you don't know what's going to happen. They might have friends, they might have a weapon. If you are ever in a fight, take them down, end of story. Some people have considered it the strongest standing martial art. I'd be inclined to agree with that from what I've seen, even though I am a karateka. Now, its weaknesses, again, going into jiu-jitsu, it's not very effective on the ground. And that's how a lot of standing fighting styles are. But getting them on the ground is a different story, okay? Those elbows and knees can really do some damage before you get them on the ground. Now, one of the weaknesses I've seen from Muay Thai is that there's no real there's no real structure in terms of organizations. Again, if someone knows that there is, please listen down below. But from what I've seen from my own research, they don't regulate themselves like a lot of other places do. For example, I'm underneath the JKA, and the JKA has strict standards on what you're supposed to do. The JKA has a syllabus on everything you should know at every belt and what the standards are, so it gives you a clear vision for how to train. I don't see that, or at least I haven't seen it. I don't know if they have too many organizations and how well these organizations are regulated or policed. Again, I would love to hear the feedback on that because I don't know enough about it. Another bit of is some of the techniques, like especially meant for eye gouges or throat techniques, for example, you can't really practice those. So they're great to practice, when you're just by yourself, but actually practicing that with another person, it's kind of hard for you to do that. And karate also has that same foundation. There are techniques that go to the throat, but you don't really practice those on people. So there's the lack of experience from being able to practice these techniques fully. You should be able to practice techniques that are meant for what they are with a person live training. Not to say that we should go out just punching people in the throats or eye gouging them, but if we're going to teach these techniques, there should be a way to test these techniques. And that's pretty hard for those types of techniques. That's also why they're banned too in a lot of competitions, because they are very dangerous to people. Another weakness that I found, and I kind of agree with this one too, is the fact that some people study Muay Thai and they think they're invincible because Muay Thai does, or definitely at one point, I know for a fact, had this reputation for just creating monster fighters, unstoppable machines, and no fighting style is like that. It doesn't matter if it's jujitsu, boxing, whatever. No martial art is going to make you invincible. It's the person, and anybody can get beat. We're not always going to win. There's always going to be someone better. But Muay Thai is definitely a solid choice for a martial art for self-defense, merely because you do so many different types of techniques with the fists and elbows and knees. Like I described before, a lot of other arts, they don't use that variety, and they certainly don't allow them in the tournaments. I've seen tournaments in Muay Thai where they just elbow people and knee them. So it definitely gives you that pressure testing for what it feels like to hit somebody with your knees and your elbows, because if you've never trained for it against another person, it can be a little bit of a shock for you. So definitely a solid choice. All right, number 3 is boxing. So I really love boxing, so I can speak a little bit about this one. Boxing is a great choice because of its simplicity. You're just using your hands. I mean, there's footwork. You learn speed, you learn agility, and you learn very simple techniques. You don't have to think so much. A lot of other styles, they teach you all these different techniques. For example, karate, there's the nukete. As I said before, there's the eye gouge and other techniques that you don't really use too often. Boxing is very simple. You have 2 hands and very limited punches. It kind of eliminates the idea of overthinking too much in a fight as compared to other arts when you go at it. Other things is you practice against live people, and there is a lot of good sparring going on. There's a lot of rules. It's got a lot of foundation. Boxing also teaches you to evade, move the head, teaches you not to get hit, because in real fighting, you can't get hit that many times. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to take a punch to the face over and over again and still be fighting. Typically, most of the real fights I've seen in life, if a person hits you one good time, most of the time you're dropping. Boxing is definitely a good fighting style to learn. Now, its flaws. Obviously, the lack of kicking. When I started practicing karate, I asked the guy, like, how would you fight a boxer? And he said, take out the legs. Hit him in the legs and just keep hitting them over and over again. In fact, there's a famous fight between Muhammad Ali and this other guy, I forgot his name, and the guy just kept kicking Ali in the legs. It was some exhibition fight, and there was a rumor that he almost caused Ali's leg to be amputated. Again, if that's true or not true, I'd like to see in the comment section below. But that is definitely true in terms of theory, is that if you are fighting a boxer, you want to stay away from the hands and work the legs. Okay, that's the best way to kind of neutralize those hands. But if they hit you, they can put a lot of power into it. Another flaw, those gloves are so padded, they can give you a bad idea on how to punch, because when you punch with a glove, you kind of punch with an even fist. In real life, you want to punch with these 2 knuckles because they're your bigger knuckles and they don't break as easy. These knuckles break very easily. If you're going to fight somebody in real life and you're a boxer and you don't have gloves on, you need to know that you can't hit that hard with gloves on because you will shatter your hand if you try to hit somebody that hard. Right? The human hand cannot take such brute force. That's why in karate is a great example. We do knuckle push-ups to try to strengthen our knuckles because they know that if you try to hit somebody really hard, skin or bone against bone, it's going to cause damage to you too. So you got to strengthen your knuckles up. But overall, boxing is, again, another solid choice. So far, this list is pretty good. All right, number 4 is wrestling. And there is a big difference between wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I am not skilled enough to really know too much, but from what I've seen, wrestlers are a little bit better at the standing game versus jiu-jitsu practitioners. They do a lot of standing before they go to the ground, so they can kind of control the fight a little bit while standing versus most of jiu-jitsu people I've seen, they kind of just try to take the fight straight to the ground. Also, they have a lot of control too. Like they are really good at putting you on the ground and immobilizing you, at least compared to the jiu-jitsu people I've fought. I fought a guy who was a wrestler. He put me on the ground and it was just so hard to move. He just had me pinned and I just could not do anything. And I was like completely helpless. So I've seen for myself that wrestling is very effective. And again, like jiu-jitsu, its weakness is probably, again, multiple attackers. So I would still say wrestling is a very solid choice. You can't go wrong with it. And the last on the list is Krav Maga. This one I have mixed feelings about. Krav Maga, I've seen some pretty good Krav Maga practitioners, and it does have a lot of versatility. Like you train for real world scenarios, you train against weapons, they train you to go against multiple attackers. There is a lot of real life scenarios they like to incorporate in their training, which I can respect. But some of the problem I've seen with Krav Maga, and it's going back up there, is that the scenarios are just too unrealistic. There is a lot of things that goes into fighting multiple people, and from my experience with Krav Maga, I went to a Krav Maga training facility years ago during COVID. Maybe it was just the wrong Krav Maga place, but I felt like I wasn't really learning anything. I was learning very ideal circumstances that kind of wouldn't happen in real fighting. Like gun defense is very dangerous. You have to move so quickly if someone had a weapon on you, especially a knife. That is very dangerous. And I don't know if the Krav Maga situations I've seen is something you would want to train somebody on. But Krav Maga has a lot of striking, it has grappling, again, it has the knees and the elbows. But again, I just don't think it has the refinement that other fighting styles have had, just like jiu-jitsu or boxing, for example. I don't think Krav Maga is quite there yet from what I've seen. If somebody would have some suggestions on people I could check out, I would love to know. Again, with my one experience in there, I just didn't feel like I was learning a lot of technique. And one of my problems I have with Krav Maga is training people to think that they can take someone with a knife or gun is very dangerous. And you should give a foreword saying you should never do this unless they want your life or they're about to do something very horrible to you. If they just want your wallet, give it to them. Your wallet is not worth your life. If there is anything in your wallet or anything on your person that is worth your life, you need to go get a safety deposit box, go to the bank, and you put it in there. Or if it's too big for a safety deposit box, hide it somewhere because you shouldn't be carrying around anything that important on you. And that is my one kind of personal gripe about those things. Because I've met people who've done Krav Maga at the place I trained, and they had this false confidence about them about taking on people with weapons. And just like I didn't see at any point where the instructor told them this is only in case of emergencies. They were just teaching like if someone has a gun or a knife, do this or do that. You should be emphasizing how dangerous it is. And even if you're trained, this is still dangerous. I'm in the military. If someone has a gun or a knife on you and you know what you're doing, it's still dangerous and there is still a good chance that you can get hurt and or killed. And we're talking about trained soldiers who spend their entire days just running through scenarios and they're susceptible to it. So you can't make me believe that someone who's just doing this every now and then or every couple of weeks, they might go to the dojo and they might practice a little bit on their own, that they can do it. So I've got a little bit of a skepticism about that. But again, I'm more than open to being wrong. If somebody could just show me or give me some links, I would really love to see it. All right, so that's the list. Overall, I think it's a pretty good list. The only one I was a little skeptical about is Krav Maga, and I'm just not sure if it's just ready yet. I feel like give it a few more years or a decade, it will be a lot better, but from the experiences I've had, it just wasn't that great. So overall, the list that ChatGPT gave out was a pretty solid choice. I would tell anybody that you can't go wrong if you were to pick any of those martial arts in the list. So if you guys like this, please again subscribe, like the video, and I will see you guys in the next one.